So what happened is I had these two accounts, plus my main account, Dom, and I started accumulating accounts. And this is around the time when direct messaging was the thing. You know, direct messaging is on Twitter, where you can send a message right to a person's mobile phone or their inbox without having to know their email address or their cell phone number. It's very convenient, and it was one of the revolutions that started to push Twitter towards the mainstream. Because you can interact with people, celebrities even, without knowing their cell phone number. Until later is how they use Twitter. Well, I'm going to get to that. Thank you. This is the historic portion. This is a little bit of context. Talk about the API that accelerated a lot of things, allowed people to write applications on top of Twitter. And now we're approaching 2007, and the whole idea of saying TWTTR when you're talking to someone just became onerous, and we decided to buy some vowels and create Twitter.com. This is around the time when you could essentially say anything of any length on Twitter, and it would get pushed out via multiple messages. There's no limit. And there were great bugs, and messages wouldn't be delivered in time, or maybe not at all, or maybe much later. And so they put this limit on there of 140 characters to address the bugs with text messaging. Who knows why text messaging is 160 characters? Anyone? You know this? All right, so this is an interesting backstory. Another engineering innovation. There was a gentleman who was creating a specification for what's called GSM, Global Standard for Mobile. And in there was a small line about the limit for a test message on the system. So every time you send a text message, you're actually utilizing the testing mechanism that your phone is built in. It's necessary for the thing to function. It's probably the highest grossing product of any service because it costs them nothing. And if they charge you, whatever it is, 25 cents a message now. But we were constrained by that because he sat down one day and wrote a bunch of sentences out, well-known sentences from poetry, drama, his own sentences, letters to his friends and family, and counted the number of characters in every sentence and did an average. And found that the average number of characters in a sentence is around 160. And so he wrote that into the specification, and it got deployed worldwide, and now everywhere you go, you're limited on your cell phone to 160 characters per text. And so to accommodate that, we shortened that to 140 to allow space for the username. And when that happened, there was a huge uproar. Okay, everyone was really not happy with this. And the lead engineer at the time was Jack, and he wrote this one day on his account. One could change the world with 140 characters. And I was listening, and I happened to resonate with that, and I really thought, he's right. And if I'm not going to be that person, I'm going to be listening to someone does. So I created 140characters.com, and I started blogging. And one of the things I noticed was that there was a huge uptake of activity around South by Southwest. Do you guys know that is an interactive film festival, music and interactive festival in Austin every year? And it's a big nerd gathering, and it's a great place to test out new social tools. And it was a hit because they put Twitter on the plasma screens in the hallway of the conference. And for the first time, attendees could see what they had written next to everyone else's comments in real time as they exited the session they just came from. And whatever snarky comment someone had would be shown. And it was a real phenomenon, and it started to get a lot of interest. Twitter incorporated right after that, because there are a lot of VCs that go to these things. And Jack became the CEO. So now, a guy who joined the same company at the same time as a line-level engineer, he had a great idea, showed that idea off, became the lead developer, became the CEO. And one of their early deals was with MTV. They had the Moon Man tweeting from the stage of the MTV Music Awards. And he was talking to celebrities, walking up to them, giving them the first tweet, say, here, type on my cell phone, use this thing. He didn't even understand why he was using it, let alone the celebrities, but everyone was trying it. It was a big deal. We had like Ashton using it back then, I believe. And that's when it really started off. Got a lot of press from CNN and other places. And now we're approaching 2008, and the system couldn't take it. Do you know what the fail whale is? Raise your hand. Okay. Wow, awesome fake that was chosen to represent the downtime error page on the site. And it was showing up all too often around 2008. It was a phenomenon, actually. It was a really big deal. Fail whale was both beloved and hated. There she is. But they fixed it in time for the election. And the most followed user on Twitter at the time of the election was Barack Obama. Who can guess how many users he had? in October of 2008.
Followers?
Followers. People subscribe to his messages.
6 million?
Okay, keep guessing. Smaller.
Smaller?
Yeah. There were probably less than 6 million in the system at that time.
Oh, yeah, I was
So just
1 million?
on the internet.
smaller. 150,000. I know, hard to believe.
Yeah.
Because we have millions on the system now. And that doesn't even seem like that many to start with. But it was enough to signify that he was, that everyone tried to get into social media at that time. All the politicians were trying it. But there were only a few that were successful, and he happened to be the one that was most followed. I also, by the way, side story, I worked on the campaign as well. I built the Obama iPhone app with a team of 9 people. Did you know that app? Everyone see the Obama? Some people know that app. It's not on the store anymore, but it was an app that allowed you to get organized for the campaign. So I was very tuned in at this point. And tuned in when the terrorist attack happened in Mumbai. So along with Obama's election, the activity on the ground in Mumbai, there's one other event that really drove Twitter into the mainstream. And we're going to get to your question.
I have another question, sir. Generally, structured talks, people talk about half the time, 25, 30 minutes, and then take questions. How many of you have questions about how to use Twitter?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
these people, if you learn how to use Twitter, they're writers.
Right.
So if you could focus as much as you can on the remaining 10 minutes of your talk on how to make it work.
I'll fast
that would
forward.
be great.
No problem.
Thanks so
The
much.
rest of it, I'm trying to provide some context because, in a sense, the past is the future. What we've seen right now is going to repeat itself. We saw Twitter being a small community of text messaging writers. That will reproduce itself outside of the U.S., outside of the first world, in developing countries, places in need, like Haiti, like Mumbai, like Iran, like on the Hudson. Oprah drove a lot of attention, got a lot of media into it. So when Iran hit, folks were 5 to 10 people on the ground tweeting about what's going on, were repeated massively at huge scale, immediately all over the world, and everyone seemed to be coming from Iran, when in fact there were 5 or 10 people doing it, everyone repurposing that. And that's the power of Twitter. That's where we see these things happening. I'll just briefly talk about how I addressed the writing of this book. I originally intended it as a hypertext edition, and it looks like this. You can buy it now on the App Store. I produced it before I wrote the actual text in order to continue to ship both at the same time. And it got some attention. You can see it there in the upper left-hand corner, in Apple's iTunes downloads. Turns out being on the front page of iTunes is nice. You can follow the activities of the book and learn all about that by following the book. What's going on right now? Let's see. I'm going to show you how to use Twitter, okay? Watch this. Let's hope this works. All right, well, this is how I use it essentially. I have a tool called Tweety. For the Mac, I have my over 50 accounts here. Every project of mine has its own voice, as it were. There's my Surf account, all the replies, etc. of my company. iPad Developer Camp, which I'll be talking about in a moment. A couple of words that I have also claimed, like realizing. For everything that I do, I have an account, and I use that as an aspect of my life can speak for itself. And when I write a tweet, I include a reference to that username. And like I say, selling copies of the book here at the reference URL. And I try to make it so that every message has a deep context that you can explore beyond the actual message itself. So every hyperlink has additional value. Every word that you use in the message counts. And so if you claim a word like book, work, surf, a person can both get that message and get more meaning as they visit that link.